Well, let's say good morning to you from our Abuja center. My name, as always, is Nwabueze Njok. On Wednesday, we brought you a program, a conversation with the national president of the Associate of ASU, that is a Senior Staff Association. Am I right? ASU, Academic Staff Union of Nigerian Universities. Thank you very much. I was going to mix it up. We brought you an interview with the national president. And one issue he raised was that the Nigerian establishment, say the Nigerian government, do not have confidence in Nigerian intellectuals, academics, university scientists. So when the president last week charged universities to embark on cutting-edge research driven by national needs as their contribution to national development, the ASU president said that was a contradiction because you couldn't expect that from a system you do not trust. Today, we are confronting what looks like the same thing. If at the end of this conversation I'm right, you get to know. Now, every season of politics, when a new government enters and appointments are made, those who are appointed ministers, other top government political appointees, come in with a retinue of advisors, special assistants, aides, and all that. And they seem to be running a government in a government. This morning, I have as my guest Olusade Adeshola, OON, a retired federal permanent secretary. And my conversation with him this morning will be quite extended. Olusade, you're welcome to the program.
Thank you so much.
Let me jar you, as it were. You were in the system. You are still friendly with the system. Do Nigerian governments have confidence in the civil service?
My response to the question will be, it is a situational matter. Let me quickly add that from 1999 to date, most of the headship of government we have had at one time work in the public service in one way or the other. You are aware that the current president, Ahmed Bola Tinubu, worked as a governor who is the head of public service of a state before coming to become the president in the federal. All of them had cause to work with the civil service. However, the issue of confidence they have in the service will be a question that individually they will have to respond to. But I will say, because they are no strangers to government, they know what the system is. It is also appropriate at this time to situate in proper context what a civil service and what the public service means. The working definition for civil service is contained in the 1999 Constitution, Part 4. And in that, under the interpretation, citation, and commencement clause, it defines a civil servant, a civil service of the Federation, as the service of the Federation in a civil capacity, either as the staff of the office of the President, or a ministry or department of the government of the Federation, who are assigned specific responsibility of the government or the Federation. That's a civil servant working in the civil service. But by way of contrast, the 1999 Constitution also says that the public service means the service of the Federation in any capacity. So while civil service is restricted to civil servants are recruited to the civil service. That of public servant covers the service for the federation, and that's where those political heads come into play. They are also public servants. And in the course of the employment, we have had cause to interact continuously. But the level of confidence individuals have depends on his relationship and the degree to which he believes in it. So it is not a general rule, cannot be applied, but individuals. I know of some administration that made use so much of the civil service. In fact, it was said, it was alleged by a president that he would prefer to work with the permanent secretary as heads of ministries than bringing in politicians as head of ministry. That shows the level of confidence. And at another end, some have said these civil servants are not useful. He prefers to bring in his own. So it has been oscillating between those two extremes. But one thing is certain, the civil servants are indispensable in the conduct of government. You remember, each administration comes and goes, but the civil service remains. And it has to remain to serve as bridge between one administration and the other. Look at this scenario. At the end of 4 years, if everybody leaves government, then the incoming administration comes to populate the government. How will they continue? So we need a system that ensures continuity, and that is what the civil service has done.
Now, the civil service should hold institutional memory.
Sure.
The service from government to government. Let us look at the service of the civil service. The citizen expects that each government comes in with its own programs and projects. But because of the competence in the civil service should help each government deliver on its programs and projects. Is it the situation?
That is what the situation should be. And largely, it will be the situation. Let me give a rundown of some of the past administrations. You know, when the Obasanjo administration came on board in 1999, it came with the National Economic Empowerment and Development Strategy, NEEDS. That was the song we were singing. It was a medium-term plan for the administration. And by its second term in office, it introduced the seed. It introduced the seed for states, the leads for local government, which means these programs are being institutionalized. But as you are aware, the Obasanjo administration came in on 29 May 1999. But these programs were launched in 2003. What this means that the launching, the conceptualization and development of this program had much content of the civil service. Now, when it came to Yaradua, on 29th May 2007 was when he came in. And shortly after his inauguration, he launched his 7-point agenda. Shortly after his inauguration, this means this program has been in his pocket. He came with it. Input of the civil servant might not be much, but attempts were made to domesticate and integrate this 7-point agenda into the system. And in the process of domesticating and integration, we now came up with two critical ones out of this 7-point agenda that became his main focus. When Jonathan administration took over on 6th of May 2010, he also came up in 2011 on the transformation agenda. From 2010, 6th of May to 2011, that's quite some months. This also had substantial component of the civil service. Now, let's look at it. It was under President Jonathan that we first had performance management system integrated or incorporated into the administration of government. Civil servant midwife this program. I remember that time, the national planning developed the performance agreement that ministers and permanent secretary signed with the president. Yes, it was under the National Planning Commission, supported by World Bank, but the driving of that program had robust input of the civil servant. Now, we now came to Jonathan. After Jonathan, we came to Buhari's administration. Sworn in 29 May 2015, they came up with the Economic Recovery and Growth Plan, ERGP, in 2017. He was sworn in 2015. You agree with me that for a person sworn in 2015, his program coming up in 2017 must have robust input of civil servants. In fact, I was privileged to participate in some of the activities leading to the finalization of the RGP. Now, this was implemented continuously. A successor program came up after the COVID, which was the National Social Investment Program. This complemented the ARGP to address another critical program. Actually, it came up in 2016. Remember, it was inaugurated in 2015.
Yeah.
So the process of packaging these programs or his agenda must have had robust input of civil servants. Now we fast forward to 2023. We now have the Renew Hope agenda.
Yeah.
But you know, unlike the past government, the Renew Hope agenda was part of the campaign programs of the Bola Ahmed Tinubu APC. And he continued with this. And when he became president, he just commenced the implementation. Like this one, the input of the civil servant in it is little. But the need to domesticate this for the civil service to drive was also brought to the fore, because shortly after the inauguration, a retreat was held for civil servants and the ministers on the implementation of this agenda. So one thing is very obvious. Whether this program came up early or later, it has always been recognized and appreciated by successive governments that the role of the civil servant in the implementation of these policies are very cardinal.
Let me synthesize from this conversation. It appears that the politician comes in with a thought, with an idea, but he needs the civil servant to put them into implementable programs.
Exactly.
And give them timeline.
Exactly.
I have a little worry, which I want to express with you.
How does it work?
How does it work?
How it works is this. The head of government is the president. So he comes with his policy. This is what I want to achieve. Remember, it's a tenure position. So, and he got the election on the basis of commitment made. In doing that, in translating this commitment to action, the civil servant will now sit down and to examine how this could be aligned with the administration of government. This is the role of the civil servant. And oftentimes, this is also the area where conflicts often occur. Because where there is a conflict between the mode of implementation or the rules and regulations already in place will be breached, then the civil servant will draw the attention of government to it. Yes, this and this policy will be challenged by this extant agreement or extant policies that government has put in place before now. So for this to be achieved, the civil servant will not tell the government that it cannot be done, but rather will prefer alternative ways of achieving it. This is the focus and this is the concern of the civil servant in government. Because as the regulation says, the government, the administration has the final say. And provided no rules is violated, the civil servant must comply. It is only where there are rules violated that the civil servant will draw it up. Your Excellency, we need to look at this aspect, this aspect, this aspect of this issue. What are your take on it? What do we need to do? What have we done? All this will be looked into and addressed.
Let me ask you a question. Is it the civil servant who implements, who oversees and implements the policies and programs of government? Is it the civil servant?
Is it the civil servant? Now let us look at the implementation of government programs. That will enable us to answer or respond to the question. Government wants to construct roads from a superhighway from Lagos to Calabar. That is the policy direction of government. What is the next thing? The process goes through the procurement process. The minister has he has to confirm the conclusion of the procurement process. But the system that administers the procurement process
is the civil servant.
Now, in the process, after doing that, the implementation of the project will be supervised
by
the civil servant. Where oftentimes consultants are appointed, especially in such big projects, because the capabilities required may be beyond what the service possesses. Therefore, consultants are put there. But the report of the consultants are also reviewed by the same service. So, to a large extent, the civil servant implements the programs of government.
Now, let me paint a scenario to you. You used works, for instance. The Minister of Works may have a special assistant on whatever, a senior special assistant on whatever, and that one on monitoring and evaluation, blah, blah, blah. That minister may have about 5 special assistants or advisors. Between the minister and those advisors, pardon my language, they seem to run a government in a government. Between 6 or 7 of them, they sit down, look at who's going to design, look at who's going to monitor what has been designed, look at who's going to monitor the costs and quality and all that, and be sure that the minister gets regular briefing until the project is delivered.
Yes.
If those advisors do those jobs, what will be the job of the civil servant?
Interestingly, the regulations are very clear on what needs to be done. For instance, the regulation has envisaged the need for ministers to engage special assistants, special advisors, but it also says it shall be the responsibility of the minister to bring the special assistants or advisors, whatever name he's called, to integrate him into the bureaucracy. And at times it also envisaged that there could be conflict between the head of the bureaucracy, permanent secretary, and the special assistant or special advisor. And he says the minister will preside over a meeting where such are resolved. Rightly, there are times where there have been a sidelining of the bureaucracy, and this is a cause for concern by all. Where that happens, the challenge is this: the special assistant or advisors might possess capacity that we may not even have in the service. But the limitation is that when the special advisor leaves office at the end of the tenure of the administration, he goes away with it.
That's where I was coming to.
Yes, he goes away with it. And the challenge now is successful administration will have to grope to take off. It's a challenge. And what is the way forward? It depends on the extent of confidence that a minister has in the system he meets on ground. And what we do as head of bureaucracy, we work hard to earn the confidence of the political heads. Where you succeed, then you'll be able to work well. But where you don't succeed, you will still have to find a way to get as much as you can to domesticate in the system. And this is the reason why we often arrange meetings, ensure that professionals of the ministry accompanies the minister on his assignment. And when they come, the professionals must drop a report and will be a record of the ministry. So we will always find a way to address the situation, but at times it could be a big challenge.
Let me empathize, even sympathize with the civil service trying to find a way to work. I'm bothered particularly about domiciling such competence and skills in the ministry. When your principal, a minister, comes in with his retinue of advisors who, as you said, could possess cutting-edge knowledge which is not available in the ministry. He operates and operates very successfully. But when he leaves that competence, those skills. What do we do to domesticate those skills? And before you answer me, is there no number of these advisors and assistants and senior special assistants such ministers can hire?
Thank you very much. Let me start from the last question. Is there no limit to the number? The 1999 Constitution at Section 151 makes provision for the appointment of special advisors by President. And let me read out some of the provision. The President may appoint any person as a special advisor to assist him in the performance of the duty. And the number of such advisors and their remuneration and allowances shall be as prescribed by law or by resolution of the National Assembly. So there is no cap on the number. You will recall that in a recent interview, the President said the advisors he appointed are based on need. So if they are need driven, good. There is no
cost to worry.
No cost to worry. But oftentimes it's required that this should also be tied to the budget. But now coming to the case of the ministers, the Guide to Administrative Duty now provides that each minister may appoint a senior officer of sufficient seniority from within the ministry or outside the ministry as a special assistant. This is to assist the minister. When he's appointed from within the system, there's no problem. But when you from outside, then the permanent secretary will work with the Federal Civil Service Commission to give him a contract appointment covering the period of the tenure of the office of the administration. So this is the situation. Why was it so then? Then the regulation acknowledged and appreciate the capacity that the service comprised. But that confidence has waned. And what are the factors that are responsible for this? Over the years, attention to capacity building and training of civil servants waned, resulting to loss of capacity. During the Civil War, as you remember, the head of state then worked largely with the permanent secretary.
I was going to give you examples.
And the civil service then administered government of the federation successfully. But we also know then that the process of entrance into the service were based on merit. These appear to have been largely jettisoned. I look at a situation, the challenge like this. Currently, it has become like a cobweb cycle that you don't even know where to truncate the problem. As you are, as I am, if there is any office or government that is open today, the CVs already in my kitty will be sufficient to fill the vacancy. And the society has made it as if you do not succeed in giving employment to indigenes,
You've committed a
you've
crime.
committed a crime. National Assembly will have to run here and there, and in the process, they don't even care about the competence. The civil service becomes a dumping ground. That is one challenge. So with this dumping, some of the persons brought into the system are not even trainable. So when such persons rise by career progression to occupy positions, definitely the interest, the confidence of the political head in such a system will fall.
Of course.
And they will look for a way to get the solution
Outside.
from outside. Number two, the challenge in the development and growth of private sector in Nigeria has created so much pressure on the government sector. Any economy where the public sector is the main employer of labor is not right. Government will be challenged, and this is the problem we have. Recruitment largely has become a patronage system, not based on merit.
On merit.
When in those days, when merit was the watchword, the public sector was competing with the private sector in getting the best hands. And the candidate looks at, for instance, I remember a friend of mine. He got a job at NNPC and he got a job at a bank. He looked at the two, he opted for the bank. He left NNPC because then the condition of service in the bank was preferred, better than what the NNPC then was offering. But what has happened to the banks? How many of them are remaining? Technology is reducing the number of workforce. You will get to the bank, you see large number of tellers. But what is it now? We all use cards. But why technology is taking away those jobs, other opportunity arise. But our private sector has not grown concomitantly with the need of the society. A buoyant economy, if a buoyant economy where private sector is strong, experience the type of relocation that has occurred in Nigeria, the economy will run into problems. Then we are still active because we don't even have a place for them to be employed. So what is the duty? Government is focusing on supporting the private sector to develop and grow. When the private sector comes up, it will be able to become a larger employer of labor. The condition of service offered by private sector oftentimes is even better than that of government. And when that one happens, government will now have to compete with private sector in order to get the best time. So a deliberate policy to introduce merit, to institutionalize meritocracy.
By returning it.
It will be a solution to the problem. But you cannot institutionalize meritocracy if your reward system is also not commensurate with it. Because if I have employment opportunity, there was a joke that I read on the social media. What happened? They showed a doctor, called himself a doctor, quote and unquote, and the patient came to him. What did he say? His problem. He said, my hand, when I raise it, it aches. Then he helped him to raise it. Does it ache you? He said, no. Raise it high, it aches. He said, okay. He wrote his prescription. He said, don't raise the hand again. That is the medicine. So that's a skit by Manuel. Exactly. So what does this show? In the cartoon, in the comment section, they said, the good doctors are all running away, and this is what remains for us in Nigeria. Why are they running away? Because of better condition of service prevalent in other climes. So our condition of service must be able to attract very best of hands. There was a recruitment when in FCT FRS before I retired. FCT IRS. A lawyer was recruited, was among the people recruited. Now, before the induction, he participated in the induction program. After the induction program, working for 2 months, he resigned. What is happening? He said, no, he cannot live here. In his chamber in where he came from, he made more than this money in a month. And he left. Immediately after the recruitment, substantial number of them left the job because the conditions
were not just.
Were not just.
Okay, we just take a break and return shortly and face two critical issues in this conversation. Stay with us. Well, let's welcome you back. Now, I said that there were two issues that are of interest in this conversation. Let me refer us to the Oresanya report. Many of us, let me just recall that the Oresanya report was looking at government, its size, and how to reduce it. And that report made a number of recommendations. Now, I'm going to find out from our guest this morning. This 5 senior assistants, special assistants, 13, forget about the president, being carried by political appointees into public office does not create a big government, enlarging the number of people running the government.
It will certainly do. But look at the challenge as we have enumerated. It has become a sort of cycle that addressing the challenge requires deliberate effort and commitment of government to do. If the government is committed to enhancing, developing the capacity of the civil servant, we will not have the challenge that we are having now. Let us go to the records of the ministry. How much is provided annually for training and capacity building? That is one thing. And number two, the people that we have employed as a social service employment, how many of them are trainable? These are the things that give the gap for
and become an excuse for bringing in
the civil servant. The civil service on its part has been making tremendous effort to address capacity challenge gap, but it's still really far behind. Let me give you the scenario, the situation we have. For instance, a private sector organization, a foundation, Igumokede Foundation, came in deliberately to support the reform effort of the service. They provided training to permanent secretaries. They take permanent secretaries to UK. They introduce leadership training program in which civil servants are trained. The Smart P, the Lead P program, we are having a catching of graduates of those programs coming on board. One thing you find that where we have those ones trained under such a program, they become a very hot cake because they now possess the capability. But when 1,000 civil servants apply for such a training, oftentimes 80 to 100 will qualify because the majority do not possess the competence. In spite of those limitations, the service has consistently made effort to improve, at least at the upper echelon. Years before, appointment of permanent secretaries is done by handpicking. Oh, the president comes, he picks whom he wishes to, or who those recommended to him. But since return to democratic government in 1999, effort have been made to use meritocracy in the appointment. Today, what is the situation? I remember when I joined the service, when you go to the office of head of civil service, you will see a number of permanent secretaries. that cannot even climb the staircase again. They are not literate, ICT literate. When they write something, they have to, in fact, they are not able to even, some of them could not write well on their own. Either because of age, because they have changed their age so many times and will not retire as and when due. But today, what is the situation? You can no longer falsify your age. In fact, when you see someone that said, I have retired as permanent secretary, you wonder, what did you do? Why did you leave early? Because the system has worked against falsification of age. Now, that is one. So we now have youthful and vibrant individuals that could deliver on the mandate of government, working with their ministers to see that not held down by debilitating health conditions or age. That's one. Number two, for you to become a permanent secretary in the Federal Civil Service, you go through a 3-stage selection process. The first one, you demonstrate, you prove, you show your competence in addressing economic and societal issues relating to the service, general. This is an exam that has no syllabus. Question can come from anywhere. And the interesting thing about it is that until you see the question paper, until the day of that exam, nobody knows the question that will be set, not even the head of service. Because she's not part of the team that sets the question, she only moderates. So when the system, the committee, the panel sets the question, they submit it to her, they now pick from there and now go to the examination hall. At the end of the day, those who are brilliant enough will come up successful. You have passed this first stage, now you want to see your ICT competence. Unlike when you are in your office that you write, give to your secretary to type, you will read question, you will answer it on the system by yourself. You operate the system, not just to use it to watch half magic or to watch video. You have to use it to work by yourself. When you succeed in that, you now face a panel that want to see the confidence you exude, you possess in addressing issues, in speaking, and in many more areas of competencies. By the time you scale these 3 hurdles, you know that the person emerging as permanent secretary
should in fact be a permanent secretary.
And this has been and that is why, because they have that competence, when they now go to a minister that is coming, and some of which has not ever worked in the public service, they may now see the permanent secretary as too rigid, as too authoritative, because these permanent secretaries are the accounting officers, and they know that they will be the one that the authority will ask, inquire when there are issues. So this concern often raises frictions between the permanent secretary and the ministers. But the issue is most, if not all, the permanent secretaries are very competent, because the process that brings them up is a merit-based system. This is what we look to the Federal Civil Service Commission to cascade into the appointment into positions and offices in the Federal Civil Service. If this system is adopted and sustained, maintained, within the span of 5 years, people that are coming into the service will be people that are literate enough, that possess the necessary needed competence to address any issue. And it will, in no longer time, reduce the dependence
on SSA's advisors. Just this advisor, my director is telling me to just try and round up. Just please. The rule says a minister might get 1 from inside or outside. And the ministers are having 1, 2, 3, 4. Who can stop them?
Thank you. You see, there are two levels of these advisors, and you will now appreciate why it looks as if it can be stopped. Oftentimes, the president can appoint advisors and send to the
Attached to the
ministry.
minister.
Yes. So when that happens, it's within the ambit of the approval of the president.
The president's
so
authority.
president, you has no limit as to the number, but the number they can take from within the ministry or come with by themselves is one. So when that one has been done, I remember when I was in one of the ministries, the minister wanted to bring in more. And I told him, it is within, you will be entitled to it, but the books do not permit us. Let us do it like this. Let us write to the president to give us the waiver. Initially, the minister thought it would not be possible. We wrote, and we got the approval. The president appointed and seconded them to the ministry. So they work with us. Now, what has he done for us? Our budget is not affected because it's into the budget of the presidency. But we enjoy the services of those appointed for us. Just as we have said, some of them came with technology edge capacity, and we need them to support our effort. So when they come, they possess this knowledge. What we always do is to ensure that anything they are doing, the civil servant is involved, so that whatever initiatives they are implementing will be domesticated in the civil service. And when they leave, it becomes a legacy that they have left behind that will continue to.
My last question for this conversation. We have been discussing because of your experience within the federal civil service. How can the states benefit?
Thank you. There is a National Council on Establishment. The National Council on Establishment is the highest policy decision-making organ of the service, and it meets annually to review the development in the civil service and make recommendations. The National Council on Establishment is comprised of heads of service of all the states of the Federation, including and shared by the head of the civil service of the Federation. So when they meet, development at the federal level are brought to their attention. You know, it's a federation that we are running. So the federal may not be able to impose its decisions
on the states.
But when something is working at the federal, some states have come up to say, if this is working for you, it can work for us. I remember some states even accelerate beyond the federal in adopting some of the challenges or some of the innovative and reform initiatives of government. Currently, the civil service is implementing the FCIP 25. That was approved in 2021 to run till 2025. Federal Civil Service Implementation Strategy. Now, this program has 6 pillars to address some of the gaps in the service. And some of the training and capacity building is the LEAD-P and SMART-P. Now, some states have said they want to key into this program. And therefore, when you are selecting candidates for this program, please extend the invitation to us. We will pay, and our people will be trained. Rules are reviewed at the NCE, and everybody will be on the same page. So this NCE provides the platform for collaboration between the states and the federal to ensure that we all tag along. Because it will make no sense if the federal is jumping like antelope and the states are crawling like tortoise. The system will not work well. But tagging along the states will ensure that at least all of us are getting up and we are moving. And I think that is happening in the system. The services of some states are really doing excellently well. And I believe with more attention to it, we will be able to really pull them along. Yes.
Well, Mr. Olusade Adeshola, OON, retired Federal Permanent Secretary, having conversing with us in almost 40 minutes. Mr. Adeshola, thank you for coming to our program.
It's my pleasure. Thank you so much.
Well, that's the show for this day. You know that the morning show never ends, and my name remains Mwabose Njoku. Good morning.